At our divorce trial, my former spouse insisted I should get sole custody and spousal maintenance. I sacrificed my profession for this household. The judge examined the proof and announced, "You never held employment to start with, but you did engage in 3 extramarital relationships. Custody granted to the father." Her cry when the hammer struck. I never intended to become a solo parent. I never intended to pull my kids through a separation. And I definitely never pictured myself in a tribunal while a magistrate unraveled the intricate illusion my ex-spouse had inhabited for the last 10 years. But occasionally the facts must surface, regardless of how unpleasant. Allow me to rewind to the start. I encountered Elizabeth in my last year of medical training in California. She served as a front desk clerk in the hospital's admin section. "Short-term gig," she said, while chasing her true calling of script composition. She was stunning, energetic, and possessed an unlimited array of captivating tales about her existence prior to us. Per Elizabeth, she had finished first in her class at UCLA's cinema program, assisted a prominent Hollywood executive, marketed a script under option at Paramount, journeyed widely across Europe via writing fellowships, rejected a high-profile role at a New York press firm. I was drained from 80-hour shifts and totally enchanted by this artistic storm who appeared so unlike the precise, data-focused individuals I dealt with every day. When we tied the knot 2 years on, I believed I knew what I was committing to, backing a gifted, driven author whose path would bloom parallel to mine. Our twins, Emma and Ethan, arrived 3 years after marriage. Elizabeth had been, in between assignments, for much of our partnership, with numerous exciting prospects perpetually on the cusp. When she proposed remaining home with the twins instead of employing a caregiver, it seemed logical. She could compose during their rests and we'd cut childcare expenses. The initial years of raising kids flew by in a haze of exhaustion. My clinic was expanding, demanding extended hours, and I appreciated that Elizabeth handled the domestic side. If her authoring path appeared indefinitely paused, well, twin parenting is intense. There would be opportunity for her scripts down the line. By the time the twins entered first grade, our routine had firmed up. I labored, managed our money, and devoted every free moment to the youngsters. Elizabeth oversaw the house in theory, though our residence stayed constantly disordered. She was perpetually tackling something major in her study. Though I never viewed finished drafts, when I softly probed about her works, the replies grew routine. The executive faced a personal crisis. All postponed. My representative suggests redirecting it. The field is brutal currently. Everybody recognizes that. I started spotting other discrepancies. Mentions of elite contacts who never appeared. Accounts of her history that shifted based on the audience. A notable absence of fundamental insight into the cinema world for someone with her alleged experience. I suppressed my suspicions. We had constructed an existence together. We had offspring. And challenging what increasingly resembled a tangle of falsehoods implied admitting I'd been duped like a novice. The tipping point arrived when the twins hit 8. Elizabeth declared she required a $15,000 commitment for a script workshop in Hawaii. A 3-week deep dive that would at last propel her path. Something in me broke. After 10 years of funding her imaginary vocation, I at last demanded evidence. Any evidence that her literary goals were valid. The argument was catastrophic. She charged me with never trusting her, of eroding her assurance, of being domineering and harmful. When I stood ground, she departed in fury. 3 days of cold shoulder ensued, concluded by her emotional regret and vow of greater openness. A week later, I got a ring from an unfamiliar line amid an operation. My staff noted the voicemail. Jim apologizes, but he can't attend tonight. Something regarding his spouse raising concerns. I knew no Jim. A nauseating hunch developed. While Elizabeth shopped with the children that Saturday, I committed an act I regret. I inspected her computer. What I uncovered destroyed any lingering delusions. Not one script. Not a single finished artistic endeavor. But thousands of notes and chats to several mails spanning years. In-depth exchanges that confirmed she maintained at least 3 active infidelities. These weren't fleeting lapses. These were ongoing bonds. With scheduled encounters masked as authoring circles and sector gatherings. One had persisted over 4 years. Her study hours were devoted to orchestrating her outside unions. Not advancing a vocation. Worse, hidden in her message history, I discovered the reality of her past. No UCLA cinema credential. She'd never pursued higher education. No Hollywood ties. No marketed script. Her whole backstory was invented. Sophisticated deceptions she'd upheld during our union. I contacted a legal advisor prior to challenging her, collecting data systematically. I recorded all discoveries on our common family device and sent key messages to my counsel via appropriate methods to guarantee courtroom validity. When I eventually presented it all, her reaction was eerie. No rejection. No regret. Rather, she grinned and stated, "What will you do about it? No magistrate will remove those kids from their mom." She was so assured. So bold in her belief that female priority would protect her from repercussions. It felt like the woman I'd wed had been swapped with an unknown. Or maybe the unknown had always been present, donning a meticulously crafted facade. I submitted for separation the following day in Los Angeles County Superior Court, seeking main physical guardianship with shared legal guardianship due to her habit of deceit and the volatility it caused for our offspring. My counsel warned me to brace for a tangled judicial journey. Though California family tribunals have progressed past default maternal guardianship, numerous magistrates still favor mothers without obvious proof of inadequacy. But we possessed proof, legally acquired via mutual family gadgets that both had permission to use. The separation proceedings were harsh. Elizabeth morphed into someone alien, informing anyone listening that I was restrictive, harmful, and aiming to penalize her for seeking a vocation. She drained our shared funds before freeze orders. She attempted to turn the children against me, claiming Daddy aimed to steal them because he stopped loving Mommy. The sole action she avoided was securing work, despite alleging economic strain. Rather, she sought interim marital aid, asserting she'd forfeited her bright path to nurture our household and required period to reconstruct her work life. I sensed like I was sinking. The sole lifeline was the facts, and my devotion to Emma and Ethan, who were bewildered and pained as their home crumbled. Our matter advanced through every typical stage of a disputed California separation with young kids. Initially, we held interim directive sessions where Elizabeth gained short-term physical guardianship, I got ample access, and I was mandated to provide short-term aid. The tribunal named a guardianship assessor, a certified therapist who dedicated months questioning us, our youngsters, and reference individuals to suggest lasting guardianship plans. A child's advocate was further named to defend Emma and Ethan's concerns separately. The tribunal directed Elizabeth to pursue jobs during the separation, but she repeatedly argued her niche abilities in media complicated securing positions. Our matter extended for 11 months prior to the ultimate session for lasting directives. 11 months of short-term setups, assessed parenting periods, and rising animosity. 11 months of observing my kids endure while Elizabeth used them as tools in her bid for peak monetary gain. By the courtroom arrival for final rulings, I was mentally spent but determined. My counsel had assembled a precise dossier recording Elizabeth's invented past, her infidelities, and her persistent avoidance of work despite professing vocational goals. The guardianship assessor's findings strongly supported me gaining main physical guardianship, highlighting worries about Elizabeth's shaky grip on truth and tendency to favor self-indulgence over kids' requirements. Magistrate Harriet Chen was known for equity and detail. She'd taken our matter after the prior magistrate stepped aside due to once defending a health group where I'd briefly worked long ago. A link Elizabeth's counsel uncovered and properly flagged. I anticipated further postponements, more schemes. I didn't foresee the actual events. The session was scheduled for a complete day owing to the intricacy, granting Magistrate Chen sufficient period to examine all proof and absorb prolonged statements. Elizabeth's counsel opened, depicting a dedicated mom who had forfeited all for her home. He portrayed her as a skilled expert who had paused her bright media path to rear our kids while I developed my health clinic. Your Honor, he finished theatrically, Miss Miller seeks main physical guardianship with shared legal guardianship and marital aid of $12,500 monthly for 8 years to permit her to restore the path she forfeited. This accounts for both the union duration and the vast earnings gap between parties. Magistrate Chen addressed Elizabeth. Miss Miller, you assert you deserted your vocation to rear your kids. Correct? Elizabeth rose. The image of injured pride. Yes, Your Honor. I just marketed my initial script when pregnancy occurred. I elected to focus on our home over my goals. And what exact role did you depart? Elizabeth paused briefly. I collaborated with Paramount Pictures, Your Honor, in progress. In what role? What was your title? Another pause. I was formerly a freelancer, Your Honor, but slated for full-time. Magistrate Chen nodded, jotting. And you haven't labored since the kid's birth for about 9 years? Accurate, Your Honor. I've been a constant mom and house manager. My counsel was nearly trembling with eagerness next to me. We provided vast records, but it wasn't evident how deeply the magistrate had studied them pre-session. Miss Miller, Magistrate Chen proceeded. I've examined the proof in this matter extremely closely, including the guardianship assessor's findings and suggestions. I viewed the records on your job history, learning background, and actions during the union. Elizabeth grinned assuredly. The magistrate went on, her voice steady. Would you care to amend any declarations before advancing? No, Your Honor, Elizabeth answered fluidly. All I've stated is precise. Magistrate Chen glanced at her jotting, then up. Miss Miller, do you realize that giving untrue details to this tribunal is perjury? The assurance in Elizabeth's face wavered. Your Honor, her counsel cut in, appearing puzzled. Counsel, I'm offering your client a chance to adjust the record prior to continuing, Magistrate Chen stated resolutely. Because per the proof, not only did Miss Miller never labor for Paramount Pictures in any role, she has never been hired in the media field whatsoever. The tribunal fell quiet. Magistrate Chen went on. Job records given to this tribunal indicate that Miss Miller served as a short-term front desk clerk at assorted firms before marriage. She did not finish from UCLA or any university. There is no trace of her marketing a script or any creative output. Elizabeth's counsel appeared shocked, evidently having trusted his client's portrayal of her past without checking. Moreover, the magistrate proceeded, proof has been offered on Miss Miller's actions during the union, which do not match the constant child-rearing and house management she has portrayed. At this juncture, Elizabeth at last spoke. Your Honor, I can clarify. Please try, Magistrate Chen cut off, because I have examined texts, notes, and lodging bills recording what seem to be 3 distinct outside unions over the past 5 years. Notes where you explicitly talk about using your alleged authoring path as camouflage for these actions. The color left Elizabeth's face. I also observe, Magistrate Chen proceeded, that despite alleging economic difficulty and path forfeitures, you have exerted no attempt to obtain work during these actions, despite the short-term aid directive explicitly mandating it. What followed next will remain with me always. Elizabeth straightened, her astonishment shifting to fury. I merit main guardianship and marital aid, she yelled. Dropping all facade of calm. I forfeited my path for this home. He's a physician. He can pay it. The kids require their mom. Magistrate Chen's stare solidified. Miss Miller, compose yourself or face contempt charges. Reviewing her jotting once more, the magistrate spoke distinctly for the record. Per the proof offered, the guardianship assessor's suggestions, and the minor's advocate report, I determine that Miss Miller has intentionally falsified her past, her actions during the union, and her family inputs. She has shown a habit of deceit that directly affects her reliability on all issues before this tribunal. Gazing straight at Elizabeth, she went on. You never possessed a media job to start with, Miss Miller, but you did maintain 3 outside unions while your spouse funded the home and tended your kids. The tribunal has weighed all legal elements for marital aid, including union length, established lifestyle, and each side's earning potential. Given your proven workability, your deliberate avoidance of jobs despite tribunal directives, and the tribunal's reliability finding, your marital aid request is rejected past the bridge aid directed for 6 months to permit you to obtain work. The magistrate shifted to guardianship issues. On the kids, this tribunal determines that the father has served as the main active parent despite his challenging career. The recorded deceit habit by the mother fosters an unsteady setting not in the kid's top interests. She had both of us above her lenses. Main physical guardianship is granted to the father with shared legal guardianship mandating discussion on key choices. Mother will receive access every other weekend and one weekday night to be overseen for the initial 6 months by a certified overseer from the tribunal's sanctioned roster. After 6 months, the tribunal will reassess this setup based on adherence to mandated counseling and finishing the tribunal's joint parenting training course. The magistrate went on. Kid aid will be computed per California rules based on the father's real earnings and mother's assigned earnings at basic office pay, yielding a monthly duty of $750 from mother to father, which will be paused until mother obtains work. The hammer struck with a crisp bang. Elizabeth's cry rang through the tribunal, a raw wail of anger and shock. "You can't inflict this on me," she yelled as her counsel bodily held her from nearing the platform. Magistrate Chen stayed unmoved. "Miss Miller, you've inflicted this on yourself. Further, you are cited for contempt for this eruption. With a $1,000 penalty, this tribunal is closed." Guards advanced as Elizabeth kept shouting profanities. I remained still, flooded by a surge of feelings, ease, confirmation, grief, and deep concern about aiding my kids through their mother's public collapse. Beyond the tribunal, my counsel pressed my arm. "Inhale." She suggested, "We achieved the proper result. Now recovery can begin." The follow-up was both improved and tougher than anticipated. Elizabeth followed the tribunal-mandated counseling and finished the needed Fresh Starts joint parenting course. After 6 months, we revisited tribunal for a check session where Magistrate Chen altered the access directive to eliminate the oversight need based on favorable overseer and therapist reports. Emma and Ethan battled at first with bad dreams, parting worries, and conduct issues at school. We located a superb child therapist who assisted them handle their layered emotions about their mother's deceit and the separation. Youngsters are incredibly adaptable when given steadiness and truthfulness. We set a guideline soon. I would never badmouth their mom, but I would always provide truthful answers in suitable ways when they inquired. The toughest talk arose when Emma, now 10, questioned why mommy had falsified so much. Occasionally, I clarified cautiously, individuals craft tales because they desire them real. They repeat them so much they begin trusting them. But why did she betray? Ethan queried directly. I inhaled deeply. I'm not certain, pal. Occasionally grown-ups choose actions that wound those they value. It doesn't imply she doesn't adore you. It implies she erred. 2 years have elapsed since that tribunal day. I've reconstructed our existence around facts and reliability. Elizabeth ultimately secured office work and then shifted to sales, where her interaction abilities shone. She has upheld her access plan consistently for the past year and remits her kid aid as directed. The twins keep occasional therapist sessions, particularly during shifts like entering junior high. They're excelling in studies and making stable emotional gains. We've all undergone counseling. I've even begun seeing someone lately, a child health nurse who grasps the pressures of both my career and solo parenting. As for the insights from all this, there are plenty. Heed your gut when something seems off. Record everything when facing someone who alters truth. And maybe most crucially, facts may require time to appear, but they ultimately rise. The process functioned for us, but I know that's not universal. Family tribunals are flawed, frequently overloaded systems attempting impossible calls about lives with scarce data. We were lucky with a magistrate who invested time to fully assess proof, seeing beyond sex biases and societal views on parenting duties. Not all are so fortunate. To those battling their family tribunal fights, record everything via correct legal paths, secure a solid counsel who trusts your matter, and never forget what truly counts: your kids' welfare. The road forward isn't flawless. Joint parenting with someone who reshaped truth for 10 years isn't simple. But we're navigating, one step at a time. And that cry in the tribunal, it wasn't merely anger at defeat. It was the noise of a meticulously built illusion crumbling, the instant when invention finally bowed to reality. Occasionally fairness rings like a hammer. Occasionally it rings like a cry. Update 3 years post-tribunal ruling. Many of you sought an update, so here it is. Existence has stabilized into a fresh routine that would have been unthinkable 3 years back. Elizabeth has genuinely transformed her path in manners I wouldn't have foreseen. The tribunal shock appears to have sparked real introspection. She's held consistent jobs for over a year, finished all tribunal-required counseling, and has been a dependable figure in the kids' worlds. We're not companions, but we've reached a practical joint parenting link centered only on Emma and Ethan's welfare. The youngsters pass every other weekend with her, plus one weeknight meal. Last month, she joined Emma's Invention Expo and Ethan's keyboard performance without incident. We're trying to override my rules, a minor wonder given our past. The most unexpected shift occurred 6 months back when she requested a solo coffee meet. I was cautious, but consented, if public. I must say something overdue, she started once settled. I'm regretful for all the falsehoods, the betrayals, attempting to seize the kids from you, everything. I must have seemed doubtful because she added, I don't anticipate pardon, or even trust. But my counselor identified me with dramatic personality traits with self-centered elements. With correct care, I at last began grasping my conduct patterns and why I built these complex illusions. She halted, steadying. The reality is, I did care for you, and I do care for our kids. That was never false. I just couldn't be truthful about anything else. I didn't reply right away. After years of schemes, mere words held minimal value. Deeds outweigh regrets, I eventually stated. Continue appearing for the kids. Continue creating something genuine. That's what counts now. She nodded, gaze lowered. I'm attempting. And truthfully she has been. The falsehoods have ceased. The theatrical accounts of ghostly vocational chances have been swapped with truthful reports about her real position. She's even begun courses at the nearby junior college, her initial valid post-secondary pursuit. As for me and the kids, we're faring well. Emma and Ethan have adapted to the guardianship setup and are succeeding in academics, though they have sporadic tough days during house switches. My bond with Diane, the child health nurse I noted, has grown. She's fantastic with the twins and they've truly warmed to her. We're proceeding cautiously, fully aware of how tricky mixed family interactions can be. But for the first time in years, I'm permitting myself to envision a tomorrow that involves companionship and reliance. The wounds linger, naturally. I still catch myself confirming details by habit, something Diane softly points out when she spots it. Not all are Elizabeth, she notes. Some simply speak truth. I'm relearning to accept that. To those inquiring if I regret revealing Elizabeth in tribunal instead of opting for a milder separation, no. Though the journey hurt, the facts built a base for true recovery. For everyone. Her illusion realm was damaging our kids as much as me. Occasionally destruction must come before rebuilding. Existence isn't a script with tidy plots and flawless endings. It's chaotic, intricate, and firmly defiant to our control efforts. But there's splendor in truth that invention can never rival. The real bonds that develop when we remove our facades and just exist as ourselves. That's the insight I wish my kids carry from this. Facts, however flawed, always surpass the loveliest falsehood.